What is going on, everyone? My name is Benjamin Nowak. In today's video, we're focusing on the top baits to go out and catch fall transition smallmouth bass. This can be one of the toughest times of year to consistently stay on fish and catch fish every trip out. And I know a lot of people are saying it's early. We're not in the transition yet. The fall's not coming, but the fact is we're in the first week of September, and by about the third to last week of September, you're going to start to notice those fish being in their fall spots. So what does that mean? Is we're in the transition. You're seeing those cold mornings, those moderate daytime temperatures, and the water temps are actually starting to come down just a little bit. So we're going to be noticing these fish move into the fall transition and start to get into that funk that we seem to have every single year during the end of August to about the third week of September. So I'm going to break down my best baits to catch these fish, walk you guys through my thought processes, and hopefully give you guys some ways to go and be more effective on the water when you're targeting smallmouth bass during the fall transition. Now this video is going to be really cool because I'm actually partnering with a company called Outdoor Sponsors, and OutdoorSponsors.com is a brand new company that gives you the opportunity to get pro staff pricing without having any obligations. And they reached out to me after looking at some of the videos on my channel and realize that we have similar kind of goals, and that's to help people go out and catch more fish and get them good deals to go out and do so. This is not a brand new company. It's actually a off branch of NPS, National Pro Staff, but what they're doing is giving you guys the opportunity to register to get pro staff pricing without any obligation. So this is 20 to 40% off, up to 80 brands that are currently on their roster, more being added all the time. And this is in the US and Canada. So this just made sense for me to work with them because they're a new company that gives you guys the opportunities to gear yourselves up with some of the baits that I'm going to be talking about in the video for discounted prices. What's also really cool is they wanted to offer all the viewers of these videos a 50% off discount code to sign up for OutdoorSponsors.com. So what you're going to do is use the code NOWAK50, all caps on the website, and instead of it being a $50 registration fee, it's only going to be $25 to register on Outdoor Sponsors. And this is really cool because then if you're spending $100 to $125 on baits or rods or apparel, there's a bunch of different brands you can choose from, you're going to be making that money back right away. So it's not like you're going to have a huge investment here. You're going to make the money back, and the more product you buy, the more money you're going to save. So it's really just going to give me the opportunity to help promote products to you guys and give you a way to go purchase them at discounted prices, and you don't have to be part of a pro staff company, which is really cool to me. So I'm going to be using this program just like you guys are, and use the code NOWAK50, and some of the baits that we're going to be talking about in today's video, like some Rapila baits and some VMC products, you can use the code or use OutdoorSponsors.com to save money when you're purchasing. So that's a little promotion on those guys, but I really do believe it's a program that's going to help you guys save money and gear up, because I know a lot of you guys are bass junkies just like I am. So what I really want to talk about is what to me defines the fall transition, because I think this is where there's a little bit of miscommunication when it comes into the bass fishing world. Everyone thinks that it has to be fall time for it to be the fall transition, but it actually starts a lot earlier than that. I've started noticing these fish get into this fall transitional funk for about the past 2 to 3 weeks now. And the first thing that I'm going to look for is the first cold night, the first hard cold night where that air temp drops down into like the upper 40s, low 50 degree range, and the daytime temps don't really reach that same high that they were reaching. And what that's going to do is start to transition something in the water that's triggering these fish and the bait fish to start to move shallow, move into their fall location. Another big key factor for me is the length of day. So it happens pretty much typically the exact same time every single year. That mid-August to late August time of year is when those fish are really going to start to get into that funk and start to move into the fall transition. And this is particularly smallmouth. Largemouth is going to vary a little bit, but for me, pretty much that mid-August time frame to about the end of September is when those fish are really going to start to hit that fall transition hard. And things are going to get weird, and you're going to have to change up your presentations to be successful on the water. I don't think any of the baits or presentations that I'm going to share with you guys today are going to be super revolutionary. I don't think I'm doing anything that much different, but the way I'm presenting them and my mindset going into this time of year is I think what helps me have success and be effective during the transitional periods. So the first bait we're going to talk about, and this is no surprise, is a drop shot. Drop shot obviously is a smallmouth staple, but the reason and what you're going to notice about all these baits is they're highly effective to just catch fish. The fall transition can be tough to catch them, so using baits that just help you get more bites through the transition is going to maximize your time on the water, and you might have to weed through more fish, but this is also going to result in a better day than if you just go out and big fish hunt like you were during the summertime. So a drop shot's a super effective presentation, and you're still going to have fish deep. So what I like about a drop shot is versatility, my ability to go deep on that summer stuff, move shallow on some of that shallower water stuff, moving water, current. There's just tons of different ways that you guys can fish a drop shot in a variety of different depths. And that's what you're going to need to do during the transition is fish different water, fish deep, fish shallow, fish areas that they're moving, the migrational runways, the paths that they're using to move up into those fall transition areas. The drop shot can really do it all. The bait that I'm using is a flatworm. I really like the flatworm. It's obviously taken the market by storm, but the max scent really is key. Like I said, this is the time of year you just need to get bites. And I think max scent is going to help you catch more fish. So using a bait with that scent on it is really, really critical. And then overall presentation is about a 4-inch size bait. The overall setup here, this is a TFO Tactical Elite 7-1 medium light rod, a 3000 size Zeta spinning reel, 8-pound test braid to 8-pound test fluorocarbon line, size 1 owner sniper hook, and a 3/8 ounce size drop shot weight. With that setup, you can pretty much cover all of the different bases, all of the different depths that you're going to need to be fishing, and you can be effective at targeting these fish all across your body of water. So drop shot's just really cool. It's versatile, catches fish. It's a great smallmouth catching bait all year long, but for me during the fall transition where I'm doing a whole bunch of different things, being versatile is key, and the drop shot allows me to do that. Now this next bait is not necessarily my favorite bait ever, but I just think it catches more fish than most baits that you can put in front of a smallmouth. Not only does it look like a bunch of different things that they're feeding on, looks like a goby, looks like a crawfish, you can swim it through the water, make it look like a bait fish, but a Ned Rig just flat out catches bass. It's a small presentation, it's compact, it doesn't have a big bulky body, it's streamlined. You can fish it around a variety of different types of cover, current, open water, grass, rock, sand, transitions. You can target so many different things with a Ned Rig, and it gets bites in just about all of those conditions. Clean water, dirty water, you guys get the point. But for me, a Ned Rig is such a good fall transitional time bait. What I'm going to be keying on with this is not so much that deeper water stuff. I'm really going to be plying that shallow water areas with a Ned Rig. I don't like to fish deep. I think that's where the drop shot's really going to shine, but the Ned Rig for me is going to be when I need to basically pick apart a shallow water area and pick every inch of it apart. This is when you slow down on areas once you get a bite. This is where you really pick through an area where you know fish are starting to stage or move through, and a Ned Rig is a great way to do that. That's going to draw you extra bites after you've already caught some on some of these other baits we're going to be talking about. The head that I'm using is a Do It Molds Midwest Finesse jig head. This is a 1/4 ounce model, but you can adjust the size to the depth that you're fishing. This is a little Z-Man TRD ticklers on the back of there in green pumpkin color, but really just your standard Ned Rig baits work really phenomenally. Having a Ned Rig on deck, I don't think this is a surprise for smallmouth fishermen, but it's going to catch you fish. It's really going to help you pick apart areas, maximize areas, and so it's a great bait that you need to have tied on during the fall transition. The rod, reel, line setup is pretty much exactly the same. This is a TFO Tactical Elite 7-1, same rod. 3000 size spinning reel, 8-pound test braid to 8-pound test fluorocarbon line. Nothing really super crazy there, but having that higher speed gear ratio with the 3000 size spool, 6:2 to 1 gear ratio reel is going to help you pick up line. That bait's going to be great for picking apart those shallow water areas and catching fish. The one thing I would encourage you guys is to play around with different Ned Rig baits, play around with scent, size, shape, color. The biggest thing here is figuring out what those fish are keyed in on, the bait they're keyed in on, and getting those fish to bite, so maximizing the areas. During the fall transition, a lot of times these fish are going to be in small pods, especially in the shallow water where they're starting to transition into. So when you get a bite, sit down, pick it apart with a Ned Rig, and really dial in that presentation. Figure out the bait color, the bait shape. There's a ton of great Ned Rig baits on the market. Obviously, Z-Man makes some really good ones. Also, X-Zone, which is a product that you can get on OutdoorSponsors.com, has their Ned Zone, which is a great Ned Rig style bait. It has a little bulb on the end of the tail that stands up. It's floating plastic, and you can really use it to swim or fish effectively with a bunch of different colors. So really dial in that presentation. Look for the right color, look for the right shape, look for the right bait, and dial it in and maximize the areas when you do get a bite, and the Ned Rig is going to be a go-to for me during the fall transition. Now I'm talking about cover in water, I'm talking about getting bites, and there's not a much better smallmouth bait to do that with than a jerk bait. Now a jerk bait is so effective because it triggers reactionary bites, but it also gets fish that are hungry to eat on this bait. So using a jerk bait is a great way to cover water, but also really trigger fish to bite that may not bite other style of baits, because it is darting through the water. It's reactionary. It gets those fish to follow. In clear water situations that I like to fish during the fall transition, they can see it from a long ways away. So having a jerk bait on deck is a really effective tool. Now, as you can see, this one's gotten eaten quite a bit. A lot of these fish, they're moving, they're swimming, they're constantly on the hunt to look for bait fish. So a mid to lower column depth when you're throwing a jerk bait is going to be important. I'm typically targeting shallower water areas, the transitional periods, the transitional areas, these migrational paths to the fall locations. And so using a jerk bait is a great way to cover that shallower water. It's also a great way to pick it apart and trigger fish to bite. This isn't typically a bait that I'm going to catch a ton of fish on, but I can go through an area, locate, a very specific stretch, and then pick up the Ned Rig or drop shot and really pick it apart, ply it apart, and get more bites. So a jerk bait is a great way to do that. The rod I'm throwing it on, this is a TFO Tactical Bass. This is actually a cranking rod. It's a 7-foot medium cranking rod, and I like that because when you set the hook on those fish, it bends deep into the rod and keeps them pinned. It's also snappy enough to get that bait to work correctly. The reel is an Garcia Revo ALF. This is a high speed gear ratio 8:0:1 gear ratio reel, and it's 10-pound test fluorocarbon line. For me, 10-pound test is what I like to use when I'm throwing a jerk bait, because it allows that bait to work correctly. And when I'm fishing open water, smallmouth style baits like this, I want the bait to get to maximum depth. So throwing it on that 10-pound test is going to allow that bait to really do what it needs to do down there, get the most action, and trigger those fish to bite in that clean water situation. The next bait is a staple for me anytime I'm smallmouth fishing, and that is a small body swim bait. This is a 3.3 inch small body swim bait, and I like that little bit smaller size, especially during the transition, because those fish are keying in on those smaller bait fish, and it's just something that's going to get me bites. Again, I'm looking for bites. I'm looking for those fish to just find something to key in on and feed on, and a lot of times it's those smaller than average bait fish. This is typically not a time of year I'm going to be fishing for goby eaters, which might sound odd, but there's a lot of fish that are keying in on the bait fish as they start to move towards those shallow fall time positional areas. And so using swim baits in that smaller size and bait fish colors up in the water column are going to allow me to target those fish. The colors that I'm throwing, I keep it very, very simple. There's basically two styles of colors. Bait fish, translucent style colors like this Berkeley Power Swimmer 3.3 and Tennessee shad, semi-translucent with a dark back. Looks like a lot of the bait fish we have up here in Michigan, your shiners, your little shad that are swimming around on the Great Lakes. This Tennessee shad color is a really good bait fish imitation color. The other color that I'm going to throw is some sort of chartreuse based color. So this electric blue chartreuse in the 3.8 inch right here is going to be a great bait anytime that water gets off color. Now the key is I'm going to upsize my bait just a little bit to the 3.8 inch, and I'm going to go to something with a chartreuse base because it's going to stand out in that dirtier water. So when you get those fall rains, when that water gets murky, off colored, especially in shallow water situations, having a bait that can stand out but still imitate the bait that they're keying in on is super critical. And that chartreuse, electric blue chartreuse color is a great color choice for those bait fish feeders in that little bit off-colored water. The setup that I'm throwing this on, this is a TFO Tactical Bass. This is actually a 7.4 heavy rod, but because it's a moderate action, it bends deep into the rod, so I can make a long cast, get the bait away from the boat, have it bend deep into the blank to keep those fish pinned, and it's just a really good overall setup. The reel I'm throwing is an Garcia Revo SX, and a Revo SX is just such a workhorse reel from Garcia. It's not going to break the bank, but it's going to do everything you need it to do. I'm throwing it on a little bit higher speed gear ratio. This is a 7:3:1. When those fish eat the swim bait, I don't necessarily want to have to use like every speed I have to get those fish coming to me. So using a higher speed gear ratio is going to let me pick up that line with the moving bait, but still kind of keep it a little bit slow enough where I can fish it effectively through the water column. 14-pound test fluorocarbon line lets me maintain contact with the bottom if need be, but it just keeps those fish pinned. It's a really effective overall tool to get fish to bite. And finally, my favorite way to catch transitional bass, maybe not the most effective, but my favorite way to catch transitional bass is on a medium diving crankbait like this right here. This is the Berkeley Dredger 14.5. A lot of times I'm using the 10.5, the 14.5, and sometimes I'll even downsize to the 8-foot diving crankbait when I find those fish moving shallower. But a crankbait is a great way to trigger those fish to bite, trigger that reactionary feeding urge in those fish, and get them to eat. The colors I'm choosing are very natural, smaller bait fish oriented colors. This is not, honestly, for me, a time that I'm throwing perch colors. I've noticed as these fish are transitioning, they're looking for smaller bait fish. Your smaller shiners, your smaller shad, those small, young of the year bait fish, easy opportunity feeders where they can just pull up and eat and not really have to think much about it. So I'm going with the honey shad color, which is a really natural style color. It's a solid base, but it works effectively pretty much all across the state. Anywhere that there's bait fish, anywhere that there's small shiners or shad, this honey shad color is a really, really good choice. Another one of my favorite crankbaits for the fall transition, especially when things get really tough, is a Rapila Dt10. The Dt8 is a brand new bait from Rapila. Basically dives down to around the same depth, a little bit smaller profile, but the Dt10 is tried, true, and catches a bunch of fish. It catches so many fish. Now this is a balsa style bait, and what that means, it has limited sound. I actually found out recently that the Dt10 series actually has a rattle in it, which is great. I mean, but it is just one of the most tried and true smallmouth body or smallmouth medium diving crankbaits on the market. Rapila Dt10, as you guys can see, this one has done work. It's caught so many fish, changed out the hooks a bunch of times, but a Dt10 is a really, really, really solid bait. Again, this is another bait you guys can buy on outdoorsponsor.com. If you sign up for that, they have discount codes for Rapila, and so if you guys are looking to buy these, be sure to use that link, use that code, save some money when you purchase some crankbaits for the fall. The color that I'm choosing, this one is more of a chartreuse style base. Just like the swim baits, I want something that I can also throw when that water gets off color, and having a chartreuse base with a blue back is a great imitation of a bunch of different styles of bait fish, and a Dt10 catches fish with a little bit more subtle action than the dredger when that dredger doesn't seem to work. And those are some of my favorite crankbaits to throw during the transition. Again, smaller body, more natural, and really is a great imitation of what they're feeding on just to get me bites. The whole setup here, this is a TFO tactical glass 7'4" medium heavy. This is a composite cranking rod. What that means is it's a glass graphite combination. So you can really load up on these fish. It's a slower action. So it's going to allow those fish to get the bait a little bit better. Also allow you to fight them more effectively and land more fish. This has been my favorite cranking rod over the last year and a half. Got so many fish on this thing. It's a really, really great cranking rod if you guys are looking to add one to the arsenal for your medium to deeper diving style body or style crankbait rods. It's also a great chatterbait rod, super, super versatile. The reel that I'm throwing it on is the Garcia Revo Ike series. I like this. It has a really, really big spool so I can make a long cast and get that bait a long ways away from the boat. A big power handle, so that's allowing me to kind of reduce the amount of leverage or torque that I have to use to get that crankbait to move, and it's a 6:3 to 1 gear ratio. So that's the reel that I'm throwing on there with 12-pound test fluorocarbon line. Again, just like that jerk bait, I want that bait near to the lower part of the water column. Not necessarily digging into the bottom all the time. That's one thing that's really cool about smallmouth is you don't have to hit bottom with your crankbaits. So using that 12-pound test let me get that bait just a little bit deeper, allows that bait to run a little bit truer. And I don't really have to worry about anything because there's not much to get hung up on when you're smallmouth fishing. And those are my 5 baits that I'm going to be throwing during this fall transition for smallmouth bass. Obviously a drop shot, one of the best smallmouth catchers of all time alongside a tube. A Ned Rig is going to be great for picking apart these areas where you catch fish on maybe moving baits, really understand why they're there, how to catch those fish, or just maximize that area a little bit more effectively. A jerk bait, I recommend like a deeper diving, 6-foot diving jerk bait. A small body swim bait like the 3.3 Power Swimmer, and then a medium diving to shallower diving crankbait like your Berkeley Dredger, Rapila Dt10. And those are going to be the baits that I would recommend having on the deck or having in your arsenal when you're going out targeting smallmouth bass during the fall transition. Again, this is a time of year where you really want to target those fish. You want to just get bites, and from there you can sort of slowly upgrade. You can figure out the minuscule details that make the difference between having a good day during the fall transition to really having a great day and catching a mega bag. But to start, you have to just get bites. So using baits that will get you a lot of bites can help you dial in the pattern and really turn it into a very special day. And that's what I would recommend. But if you guys have any questions about any of the products that I talked about in this video, or if you guys are interested in signing up for OutdoorSponsors.com, be sure to go down there, check out the link in the description. Also, use my code NOWAK50 and save yourself some money. It's going to save you a lot of money in the long run, and I know I have an account that I'm going to be using to pick up some more baits as I gear up for the fall. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video. If you don't know who I am, I'm Benjamin Nowak. I said it at the beginning of this video, but hit that subscribe button. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. As always, take care, tight lines. God bless. Pursue your passion.